Hey guys,
What's
welcome
up?
to
Yo,
OCD Real Talk. Just the three of us. I don't know. I think we just went off of different tangents over here. But
Dude, it
like,
was amazing.
hey, what's up, yo?
Moment was very professional, and then Elliot just goes, "Yo."
Guys, this is not us. Please don't judge us. Anyway, we wanted to, I think, talk a little bit about our own journeys with how we were when we came in for coaching ourselves. Because I think that, again, it's very easy to look at our videos and what we talk about and think that, hey, these guys have just got it together and it was very easy and whatnot. I think it also, for people who have not attended, let's say, like a webinar or who haven't come in for one-to-one, I think they also sometimes don't know exactly what like the recovery program will involve. Even if we highlight it in our videos and whatnot, but still it can feel a bit like confusing. So I thought it would be nice just to go into some of that.
Sure.
Um,
I have a
so
great, interesting way to start it because this is going to be a
yeah,
post that we were going to make. I don't think, Moment, you haven't even seen this in the WhatsApp groups. So, on all the comments on the documentary, I said to Rob, I'm like, someone commented that is a very interesting part of my journey. So, there was a guy in 2019 that I found online, and he is a truck driver in America. He's amazing. His name is Aaron. And he commented and said, "Nice vid, Nick. Really professionally produced. Hope to see a full documentary one day. Hopefully it goes to Netflix." And I said, I never want you to forget this. Without you, I would have never found Rob. You are a fundamental person in saving my life. So I, like we all do, was compulsively messaging him in the YouTube comments. "Oh my God, please help me. Please help me." Like, just because he had the same sensory motor. And then we exchanged numbers. I think he took my phone number off a YouTube comment, which is wild.
mm,
And we started texting. And I'll never forget it. He's like, "You have to follow these two or three people." And one of them was Rob Bray. So I followed all three recommendations. I did a couple calls with someone else, very nice person, but I just felt like there wasn't the understanding of sensory motor. So I took away some things, but I didn't take away other things that I think I'm like, no, I still feel like something is missing here, more than likely in a compulsive way for sure. And I still remember my first call with Rob, "Mr. Panella." And he was like, "This is what's going on." And in 15 minutes, I said, "That is exact." I felt so understood in that moment because I said to myself, I've not found a single person, because everyone feels hopeless and we have our own reasons for feeling hopeless. But sensory motor, it's like you go to YouTube and you type in OCD and you're like, "Well, I don't see anything about hyper awareness of my blinking." Like, well, I'm
yeah,
doomed. Like, I don't even know, I'm doomed. And at the time, I had not gone to the mental hospital yet. I had been with at least two or three different very nice, well-intentioned therapists here. And then when I moved to Colorado, that was probably my most hopeless moment, even though that sounds odd because that was after the mental hospital.
it's also very odd for me to like. I don't know, like when you even talked about like going on YouTube comments and being like, please help me on different places. Like I don't know. I can't imagine you like that because because I don't know. In my mind, like it's like especially your older self, like very egotistical, right? So to
Yeah.
be even to say that no, please help me. Like for some reason, like for me, there's such a mismatch in how I perceive your past self as
I
well. It's hard
called
for me
my
to
mom.
imagine.
No one's heard this story. Erica knows the story very well because it was in her parents' house in the kitchen. You guys have probably never heard this. I called my mom. Like, when someone's so hyperventilating, crying, you can't tell if they're like cry laughing because there's so many emotions. And I was begging my mom because I was in school and I had no money for $5,000 so I could go and get the brain scan done. And before I did that, and she had never seen me, like, she was really concerned. She's like,
Yeah.
"What's going on?" Like, I'm like, it was just a dark place. I uploaded a 15-minute video to my public Facebook, crying to 2,000 Facebook friends,
No
begging.
way.
Swear to
Wow.
God. Swear to God, the video is still there. I can find it. It's
Yeah.
I literally was it was crazy. I still remember I was in an orange workout shirt. I was crying. People were like, "What? What?" Because they didn't know me like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
been stuck at that point for about five to 6 months. And when I moved to Colorado, like we all do, I'm like, okay, like left the mental hospital. I feel a little bit better. Found a very, very nice, well-intentioned therapist here in Colorado who told me she had OCD. And we all have a story like this. I'm sitting on her couch. I was like sitting long ways. And she looked at me and she had her pen, and it's exactly what she did. So, can you explain to me what is sensory motor OCD? And in that moment, I don't know what I felt most hopeless I've ever felt. And I was like, if this woman is an OCD expert and she doesn't know what's going on with me, and then Erica picked me up, oh, it was a nightmare. And so
Yeah.
then I'm like, I gotta give Rob a shot. Like I really, because I had done a couple calls with him at that point. But you know how we
Mm.
do it. People do this. They go, well, I'm working with this person and that person and Rob and I
Yeah.
this and the spiritual leader and my best friend. I have a guy recently. He's telling me I was getting all this advice from his dad, and I'm like, look, dude, I know you love your dad, but he's telling me everything his dad's telling him. I'm like, your dad is coming from a well-intentioned place, but boy, that material is wrong. But it's not, they don't know any better. And then I gave
Yeah. And
Bob an actual shot. Like, and it was very scary
yeah.
because I'm
Mm.
like, I'm leaving these OCD experts, I'm leaving the therapy world, like
Yeah.
I'm leaving this, I felt like I was taking a leap. And I remember Erica saying to me multiple times, she would say to me, if you think course, the doubt's there no matter what. If you think he's been through what you've been through, then pick him because that's going to be the only person that will
Yeah.
probably understand. And I did that. And but I went through what? So June, July,
So
August, September, October, November,
I
December.
think
8 months of that pure confusion before I fully committed to Rob. 8 months.
Mm.
so. I think before you also then jump into what that entailed and all the different like hurdles and you resisting sometimes the advice and not following advice where that came into play. I think like Elliot, I want to ask you like what were your beginnings in finding OCD recovery and also like how you started your like coaching journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I tried lots of different things, Momin. So, hypnotherapy. I was down Harley Street in London, which is like sort of where the high concentration of medical care providers are in London. And, I spent thousands on that for a quick fix. And I remember I had about 3 or 4 hypnotherapy sessions. And I remember just trying to force that sense of relaxation as the woman was talking to me to try and almost access the subconscious mind, right? It was all these quick fixes that I was trying to do. That was very much the start of my recovery journey. I sort of, had an idea I had OCD. Of course, you never really know because of the realness factor, but, I was exhibiting those behaviors, compulsions, reassurance, whatever. And I instantly thought, right, I need to get this figured out now. So it was hypnotherapy. It was ebooks, OCD gone in 1 week ebooks. CBT therapy. Again, not inherently bad, but for chronic OCD in some cases, it's not enough, right? So I had all of that going on, and I sort of like flirted with the idea of OCD recovery for a little while. So I first jumped on some webinars in 2020. Before I did, I found it on Instagram, and I was in my university dorm, and I was just desperate, right? I was constantly staying in my dormitory doing compulsions, avoiding my classes because I found it so hard to even be sat in a lecture hall because I'd be surrounded by men, right? And I just couldn't focus in any way, and I just got really desperate. And yeah, I just typed in OCD on Instagram, right? I remember I sat on the floor in my room, just feeling really bad, and I did that. Came across OCD recovery. Started out with a few webinars just to sort of dip my toe in the water, and yeah, I realised that they were really productive and informative, and I thought, you know what, I need to take the leap with this coaching now, and instantly, sort of in about, I think it was about 2021. I just bought a 10 pack with Rob. I thought, right, I need to really go for this now. And yeah, that was very much a start of my journey. At the start, whilst speaking to Rob, my life was a compulsion. Constant double checking of my attractiveness. I didn't go on a date for 6 or 7 years, just living in this comfort bubble. Living at home, even though I was, I could have moved out. Compulsive exposures, that fear element massively in there. I was going so wrong in my recovery. I tried all of these things, tried lots of money, and then I found Rob, and I thought I really need to just go for it with the coaching. And that was the start of my journey for me with OCD recovery, about the start of 2022, I think that was. So just over 3 years ago. So
Nice.
of course, I had Rob, and Rob really sort of straight away. Rob's obviously quite cheeky in a sense, because you'll be on a call and he'll say like your exposure. He'll be like, "Oh, hi, Elliot. How's your boyfriend?" He does those sort of little joking things, and I
Dude,
was
this is
super giving,
great.
right? Yeah, and I found it so hard to even look at Rob in the video. Nick, I had that with you, right? I'd asked you to turn off the camera because of how triggered I was. And I remember, like, Rob said to me, "What compulsions do you think you've got?" And I remember I told him, like, in my room, all of my photos of like my favorite sports stars or pictures, they were all faced the other way because I couldn't stand looking at them. All of that stuff was taken down, and there was just all of those little compulsions. And Rob really helped me to filter those out, as well as the main ones with sexual orientation. So avoidance of dating, pornography, etc. But and it just started with that really, and we went from there. But so glad I found it. And I sort of switched between coaches as well. So I had Rob, then I had Nick, then I had Momin. But that was very much the start of things for me, Momin. Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
that's
for
wild
me,
because like for
yeah,
real quick moment for both of you, you guys had
yeah.
something that I didn't have. Like
mm,
sure, I had all my different fears, but I never felt like if I went to a public place, not one thought was like it was like a mental roadmap. But
yeah,
moment that contamination where things were like,
Oh,
and
yeah,
then Elliot was probably like same thing in a way, like, oh, there's guys over there. Like you
yeah.
have to
Do I look? Yeah,
like
yeah,
I never I could just go places. Like I never had that in
yeah,
that is wild to think about.
yeah.
I
I
think
know.
I have a kind of like dream. I don't know if I'll ever do it or not, but I want to basically write. I actually started writing it like some years ago. I never completed it, but like I want to write like a short film or something of perhaps like of someone going through contamination OCD, where
That would
it
be
kind of
great.
like shows that whatever they're viewing, it goes through like a, how there's like a computerized scan of the entire place, and it basically puts contamination areas in detection
Mm.
in that way. And the more things get contaminated, the more it comes under that detection. So I want to kind of like make that short film one day,
That would
because
be
I think
really moment. And you have the theater background. Like that would be really cool to do.
I really
Yeah.
want to do that, because it would be like, I think it would be like the perfect representation of how a contamination OCD sufferer views their pathway. Like, of like, if you're on the street, it's like, okay, this is something I can't touch. I can't step over here. I don't want to go on that side, and definitely don't want to be going here. So this means I can move like this and this and this and this. Like, it's anyway.
That
And I
is
think that, I mean, because I was functioning that way for like literally for so many years, like some my walking across my college campus, right? I'm not even kidding. Sometimes it would be like, let's say I'm walking here, right? Because this is the pathway I could walk. But then the pathway going forward and the middle patch would all be contaminated, and I didn't want to step. But the very left border was somewhere where I could. So
don't tell me you would
I would
jump.
jump. I would jump. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I would literally jump from this corner to that. Like I would
Wow.
like, literally like leap and
I'm just
sprint.
imagining myself walking back from class and seeing this man jumping, and I'm like, what's he doing?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was insane. It was insane, and my friends were like, "What is going on?" Like, but I mean, my friends are kind of like me. If they see something idiosyncratic, they'd be like, okay, like
yeah.
they won't have like an outrageous reaction. But yeah, I think like for me, the most thing was that whenever I was looking up OCD advice or pathways to recover or whatever, like it was all, I mean, sure. I think like obviously there was information about contamination, but like nothing really hit for me. It was very simplistic and very like, oh, reduce your hand washing and uh, don't do this and that. And uh, I was like, okay, fine, I get that. But same, Nick, like you said, like I felt like something was missing. And I think that I followed, I think before I actually came in for coaching with Rob, I think I had followed him for a good like 6, 7, 8 months, I think.
Mm.
And for me, it was like, okay, this person, like it's OCD Recovery UK. Like, why the hell would someone from the UK help me? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
like, why
good
would,
point.
how will that even work? And, I didn't even consider it. Like, it was just like, okay, I'm just going to follow this Instagram page and I'm just going to see what advice pops up and whatnot. But I think the reason I like followed it in the first place was because I think the one biggest missing piece for me was again irrational beliefs and perspectives. Like literally, like, and I had been to therapy. I had been through psychodynamic trauma therapy and everything. And of course, we discussed perspectives in there as well. But that was more like psychoanalysis and trying to figure out like, oh, why do I feel this way and that way? But it wasn't necessarily looking at again perspective like more rational perspectives. It was mostly like identification that okay, you feel this trauma response because this and this happened, but beyond that, and I made some changes in my life based off of that as well. It wasn't all like completely useless. I'm not saying that at all, but of course like it was a huge wall still. At least in terms of OCD itself, I was like, okay, fine, I mean, I get that I can improve my relationships or communication styles and this and that, which I did, but OCD wise, I was pretty stuck. So I think like that was like the first time that I was like, okay, I want to take a leap. I remember having like the breakup conversation with my therapist at the time as well to be like, I'm kind of switching gears. I'm going to be like trying something out with someone else. And just want to see how that goes. And I think from the very get go, it was what I really enjoyed. And this is kind of like our approach, even with us now, coaching people as well, is that we kind of like jump directly to the heart of the matter from the very first phone call,
Totally.
which is that, okay, these are your, this is the theme that you say you have. Um, these are most likely your core fears. These are probably the beliefs that play. These are probably the compulsions you're doing. And I think we instantly like hit those notes, and that's how I experienced it as well. And I think it was extremely helpful because I didn't have to kind of like, you know, beat around the bush and find this like long winded path down to that one insight of like, oh, this is what's happening. Like it was from the get go, like, okay, like this is basically the stuff that's happening. And I think that I found that very refreshing, and it also made instant sense as to like, oh, okay, like this is
That's it right there,
what
the
I'm.
instant sense. It didn't
Mm.
take me long to really say, okay, I've never had anyone explain this to me in that way. That's
Yeah.
exactly, he's like, look, it's actually simpler than you think. Not that the recovery's gonna be simple, but he's like, you're scared of a XYZ sensation. Because you're scared of it, you avoid ABC. Every
Mm.
time you avoid ABC, it makes XYZ feel more real. And it's this hamster wheel doom loop. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. And then when I started to decrease those avoidance behaviors, because sensory motor is primarily all avoidance, driving alone, being alone in spaces, anything where it's just you
Yeah.
and the sensation,
Yeah.
and always having music on. And when I started to stop doing those, my OCD got so loud. And I'm like, whoa, I did not realize how much I was avoiding these things.
When, like,
Yeah.
how long did it take you to actually start being like, okay, I'm actually going to implement the advice?
From our first truly actually was coming up here soon in what 15 days, May 4th, when I put the video games away, 2020. So I've known Rob for about half a year, and or a little bit longer than that. And I had an emergency phone call in the parking lot of my old job. 15-minute phone call. I'm like, I have to have a call right now. Oh, Moment, you should have seen how bad I was with this. And Elliot, I need a phone call right now. And he's like, all right. He's like, send payment. I'll do it right now. And I'm like freaking out, like pacing in the parking lot behind my building.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, I'll play video games 4 days a week. And he's like, look, you're at a place now where it just has to go. And I wasn't, by the way, I had no plan of getting rid of it. And then I found out that Erica was going to leave me in like a very short time frame. And I drove home from work, drove into my house. I was like, don't think. I unplugged everything, took my monitor, my PC, everything, My next door neighbor, they're like a gamer family. You look through the window, they'd be playing like Super Smash Brothers on their like as a family. So he would work on his cars a lot. So he was literally underneath his car, and I came out and I said, "Hey man, do you want this?" Which was very confusing to him because he knows that this is like not a cheap setup.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? I said, "Can you please take this for me?" Didn't clear anything. I had
Wow.
credit cards saved on there. I didn't even care. I'm like, please take this. And he's like, do you want me to pay you? I said, no, 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 no. I can't have this in my house. And he must have thought I was crazy because I saw
Yeah.
man. And
Yeah.
Have you ever spoken to him after since, like recently?
yeah, I saw he was my neighbor for a while, and we had some conversations. But I would say, how's your son enjoying? He would be so thankful. Thank you so much. Like that's so nice of you. And when Erica came home, her brain could not believe what she saw. I remember I
Yeah.
was like, go look in the office. By the way, she hated me. One time, real quick, this is important to show you guys what this can do to a relationship. One time we had sex in the living room and she cried afterwards. This is a complete true story. And I said, what's going on? And she looked at me, head in her hands like this, and goes, I fucking hate you. That's how it was. That was tough. Like,
Mm.
because you're so lost in your own
Yeah.
mind, you don't even realize the damage that we do to other people. And like people don't want to hear that, but it's like we really do put our loved ones through the ringer. And
Yeah.
so when she came downstairs and she saw that office, and I don't think her brain could, I don't think she believed it. She's
Mm.
like, where is it? I'm like, I gave it to the neighbor. And I think she understandable reaction. She's like, that was like $2,500. You gave that away. I was like, I thought you wanted me to get rid of it. Like, no, but like, and to give you guys an example, one last thing, Moment, you probably never heard this either, of how bad it was the last couple weeks. This was only like a 2, 3 week period. Erica would wake up for work in the morning and I would still be playing at 7 a.m. and I would be drinking.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, I
That
Yeah.
remember.
was bad. I was like, I'm like, what happened to me? Like, your brain
And
can't
that's
even
also
wrap.
just hard to watch. Like
Yes.
I think like I have an aunt who is unfortunately she is obese, right? And she is also pre-diabetic, right? And she's because she's been clinically depressed for like many years now. Her go-to coping mechanism has been desserts, right? It has gotten so bad that she will obsess about chocolates a lot. Like I just when I came back from Dubai to visit my family, right? Like I think this was the first because she's gotten bad and she also is starting to have eye problems as a lot of like pre-diabetic or diabetic people do. I didn't bring her any chocolates for 3 months, and I'm not even joking. She genuinely held like a grudge against me of like you and she yelled at me on the over the phone like this time when I was coming back home like are you bringing chocolates for me or not? And it felt like, not felt like, it was like listening to an addict, literally an addict, just ask for like those sweets. And I'm like, and look, even though it's like chocolates are available in my country as well, like it's not like there aren't any chocolates over here, but like I think it would maybe be the same as I would imagine, probably for like an alcoholic who obviously alcohol is available in their country, but the idea of the novelty of like having international alcohol or something, it would probably be higher. Except you can't travel with alcohol, but
That's
like, but
wild.
it
That's a
Mm.
wild.
and and it's so like it's so hard to watch. It's really hard to watch because you're literally seeing someone like say that I don't have that many chocolates anymore, but you know that they're sneaking it a little bit, a little bit, a little bit from the freezer, from here, from there, and you just watch your loved ones just ruin their life. And I can only imagine that probably even while I was still like coming in for coaching calls with Rob, I think I most likely, I mean, no one necessarily said it to me directly, except one time I think my dad did. My dad was like, and my dad is not expressive at all, emotionally speaking, but like he was like, you're my son, and I obviously worry about you. And I was just like, okay,
Mm.
okay, I I get it. So it was hard for my family to watch me because they could see that I could barely touch anything around the house. I was using, uh, toilet paper or tissue paper, whatever, to touch things and open doors and whatnot. Like when there was dinner on the table, so basically, obviously, like everyone is holding the spoon to get something in their plate from the back. What I would do is, because obviously people would hold the spoon from the back, I would then hold it like this from the very front
Yeah,
and put food so that because I was like, okay, like fine, I'll have dinner outside my room, but then I don't want to touch things where other people's hands have gone and whatnot. So it
yeah.
was just like really difficult for them to watch that stuff. And I think like obviously like even with taking actual advice on board, and Elliot, I want to ask you after this as well. Like I think in terms of the stuff that I found easy for me, the reading and the disputing, looking at different perspectives, not a problem at all.
Mm.
That was a piece of cake for me, honestly. Like I was like,
Same
yeah, I
here.
can do that.
I just left grad school. I studied
Mm.
for like 9 years. Like I read the books. Not we're fortunate like that because a lot of people they have
Yeah,
no
Yes,
reading
yes,
yeah.
requirements at school at that level. So I was the
And to
same.
be English as well. Well, have English as a main language as well. Very fortunate.
No,
Yeah,
that's another thing that we take for granted.
100%.
Mhm.
Yeah,
yeah.
because I mean, I like for me, like a lot of the texts that I read in like college and even in my masters, a lot of them were like a lot of like philosophical, like sociological, deep study kind of
Mm.
like things. So I mean, even the language, and you know how sometimes people struggle with the Ellis books because they find the sentences like very long and all that kind of stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, that's how a lot of philosophy or like any kind of like humanities writers, they write books. So I was pretty used to that. For me, it was not a problem following that. But for me to, I think if I try to remember, I think the first instance where I actually took advice seriously was I was really terribly hooked on reassurance and venting and confessing in like a friendship that I had. And I remember, and that was someone with a colleague that I used to work with. I took 10 days off of work. I was like, I'm going to work from home, but I don't want to come into the office, right? Because I want to just kind of like experiment with this. Because even if I wasn't directly speaking to that person, I just wanted to constantly be in their presence because even the presence became like a very reassuring, comforting feeling kind of thing. I took 10 days off. I just told him and some other people at work that, hey, I'm just trying to, I don't know, like whatever, uh, spend some downtime or whatever. I'll be working from home. If you need anything, just email me. But, I'm not coming in. Those 10 days were excruciating in terms
Mm.
of the inner like turmoil of guilt, shame, I'm a horrible person, like because I completely unplugged, went cold turkey for 10 days from that source of reassurance and that presence of reassurance.
Moment,
And I
real
was
quick, can you highlight that for a second? This is an important part to stop on. Like, I
yeah,
don't think people believe us at times when I say when you do something like that, you are going to feel horrible. Like
Mm.
that's like
yeah, yeah.
you're like it's good that you highlighted that because people, I'm getting worse, I'm getting worse, I'm getting worse. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you're like an addict. You just remove this source. Your body is like, give me that reassurance back. I'll do anything. Like
Mm.
it's brutal.
100% because I basically went to one of my friends' offices because I also didn't want to work from my bed. So I went to one of my friends' offices to work from there. And I have pictures, by the way. She took pictures of me as well. I'll share that in the group like when I find them. But like she was like, did something happen? Like you look like you're about to just like fall apart. Like what's going on? I was feeling horrendous. I was feeling absolutely horrendous. And a part of me also really wanted to message that friend, that colleague, and I wanted to, speak to him. I wanted to hang out with him. but I was like, no, I'm really going to bite the bullet right now because it was one of those things where, as bad as I wanted to do the compulsion, it was that moment also for me where it had stopped giving me any relief. Like any compulsion was just not giving me any relief at all. And I was
Mm.
just so fed up with it. So it was like really bad. It was really bad. And when you're also cutting compulsions, you're not going to feel that great and expect to feel bad. You can't give up compulsive behaviors or any other bad, unhealthy habits and not expect your brain to throw a fit about it. It's
Totally.
going to throw a fit.
Yeah.
Your body is going to scream at you that I really want to do this.
I mean, I did those body
And that's
dysmorphia compulsions for
exactly
18
why
years.
it's important to go through it.
Yeah,
Mm.
totally. Like I did those compulsions for my body dysmorphia since I was 16 years old. And I didn't fully start to try and cut them until I was 32. I mean, my body was like, I don't, I can
Yeah.
imagine my brain was like, I don't think so. Like you
Mm.
are insane if you think I'm letting you off easy. And I mean, the amount of stomach problems, I know Elliot, you had these as well. Like my
Yeah.
stomach problems, I literally was convinced I had
Yeah.
every single ailment under the,
Mm.
I'm like, I'm so gassy, I'm so bloated. I was like, it was bad. So like for you, Elliot, from when you had your first call with Rob,
Yeah.
how long do you think it took you until you could confidently say, all right, I'm taking this more seriously than I would have in the past? How long do you think?
Yeah, I reckon it must have been, you know, I did the 10 pack and then I got sort of sporadic, 3 and 6 packs here and there. It must have been about maybe 9 months to a year, right? Because my biggest thing was I was just obsessed with exposures with HOCD. I was absolutely obsessed. And that was all that I ever knew in my recovery journey up till then, that I need to do exposures. I need to look at everybody when I walk past in the street. If I don't look at that person, I'm avoiding. That means I'm not going to desensitize. That means I'm going to stay stuck forever. The massive fear element. And I just couldn't get in my head that what I was doing with the exposures, I couldn't get in my head that that wasn't working. But it felt comfortable in a way to keep doing those exposures and again and again and again, because I just had it wired into me that I had to do that. And after sort of 9 months to a year, I had to really think, right, is this really working? Compulsively trying to look at everybody. I remember with my family, Nick, right, and Mom, I would try and stare at my brother and my dad, right? And my brother said, Elliot, why do you keep staring at me? Because I was so locked into the HOCD, I was convinced I had to look at him, right? And I had it with my friends too. They were like, Elliot, why do you keep staring at me? Like, is there a problem? And do you know how weird that must have looked, right? Because I just didn't want to give that up. I was convinced, no, you got to desensitize. You got to desensitize.
I would have loved to have seen that. I would have loved like seen that from like a distance,
Yeah.
like staring at people.
And I thought doing that would give me some relief, but it wasn't. And in the end, yeah, it took me 9 months and a year to realise that life was the exposure for that. And you said that to me, Nick, as well. Like life is the exposure for that. And I remember, sending you voice notes saying, am I looking too long? Am I avoiding? I remember that, and it was that desperation to find out. So it took me 9 months a year to really realize, right, life's my exposure. I'm going to have to take the risk that I'm also avoiding. I'm going to have to take that risk and, work on the fear angle too. So, yeah, that was probably the advice that I really didn't want to take in. It took me about 9 months to a year. Yeah,
I think that's
really.
pretty common. I think for all three of us, with all the coaching
Yeah.
that we do. If you ask me, like out of 100 people, if you took 100 random sufferers that come in,
Mm.
how many of them take recovery seriously within 3 months? It's very rare.
Yeah.
It happens. It does happen for sure. I have a girl right now where Moment, I mean, this story will blow your mind. All I keep thinking about is you on the calls. She's like, I had a situation with a diaper on the ground. It's gotten so, but everything is, it's so, the world is contaminated. But then there's a POCD groinal response combination when contamination is there. And
Yep.
I was like, when you have someone that this is stuck, and I'll send this to her so she can watch it afterwards because she's doing. I even told her, I'm like, you're so far ahead of where any of us were. You're thinking to yourself, okay, it's going to be a while until she really. And I guess she just happened to be like, I'm at my bottom. I said, look, I want you to message me every day between calls and just say, day one, what did you do as an exposure? And she has been doing such hard exposures for only having two calls And she feels exactly like you
Yeah.
imagine.
Mm.
But you just get
It's
people
very
like that.
refreshing when such people come in. It's
Yeah,
very refreshing when you
it's
speak to people like that because they're putting in that effort.
yes, and it's wild to see because it's hard to think like that's going to happen. I remember I had a woman one time who was in her 50s who had such bad POCD, and you're just thinking, okay, it's going to be a while before she does it. And she's like, I went to the local community gym and swam in a lane next to kids doing
Wow.
their lessons for swim. I
Yeah.
was
Nice.
whoa. And she's like, I was shaking in the pool, but I'm like,
Mm.
you don't see that a whole lot. But when you
Uh,
do, it goes to show you. But I think that the next thing
I look forward to those calls. I really look
yes.
forward to those calls because when they come in, like when people are like, hey, like what we talked about last week, I've done this and this and this. I felt horrible. I'm like, amazing. That's great. Like
yeah.
that's what I want to hear. So it's really, I
When I
think,
when
refreshing
it's
and it's encouraging for you as well.
when we say that to people, oh gosh, it is really funny where I'm like, oh, it's morphing a lot. Like that's actually probably a good thing. And they're like, a good thing? Like I feel like I'm dying. I'm like, yeah, but like, I have to explain to them. I'm like, think about a baby when you take the milk away. I always use that example, the baby screaming because it wants the milk back. And then, in that way. But I think the other thing too is, so I think it's great for us to like do a timeline. So let's say most people 6 to 12 months, not taking it seriously or kinda,
Mm.
reading the books, but not fully. And then people, it's like when you do start taking it seriously, I mean, it's not like it takes a month or two. I mean, now you have another year or two. And it's important for people to hear that because I know in your mind you're thinking, well, does that mean I need 75 calls? No, it's different for everyone, and it depends on who you are and what you want to do. It is your mental health. But the thing is, it's like I have a lot of people that maybe have been in for 2 years. They've made a lot of progress. They've read every book 2 times. They really don't have a lot of anything left, maybe some fear. And they're
Yeah.
like, what do you think I should do? I'm like, why don't you just message me and you let me know, and then I'll just get you in. And I probably have like 10 to 12% of people that will just shoot me a message every 6 to 10 weeks and be like, hey, I think it's time for a checkup, you know? And then
Mm.
they
Yeah.
they they just do that. And I don't have any strong recommendations. It's very different from when someone comes in and they're like, I'm not leaving my house. And I'm like, all right, we need a
Yeah.
plan here
Yeah.
to get you leaving your house. So,
Mm.
Yeah.
but
I think
yeah,
I
it's
have a couple of people as
wild.
well who I think, I mean, they're doing well in life and again, OCD wise specifically, there's not much, but sometimes they just come in for just like, hey, this is what's going on in my life. What do you think the best mindset would be to approach this thing with? And it's not particularly then OCD, but they're just speaking to me because I know their life really well now and they just want to kind of like they just want my input. So maybe like I don't know, once in 5 months, 6 months, they'll just be like, hey, like, this is what's going on. And it's
Totally.
again, it's nice to have those check-ins with people as well, just to say hi, hello as well in that way. So, but it's good because I think in a way, I say to my friends as well that like this is like doing this is very rewarding as well because when you're able to see people make a change in their life, like obviously
Yeah.
because you also see yourself in
Yeah.
them as well because you were
Absolutely.
exactly there. And when you have people like I had someone who I gave them like, an exposure plus as a life structure recommendation as well to go out at least once a day or once every other day, go sit in a coffee shop, have some coffee because number one, that was an exposure, but also
Mm.
work from there, don't work from your laptop in your home, be out and about and whatnot.
Yeah.
And now, after about a year and a half, she came in for a check-in just last month and she was like, like also because you sent me out having coffee so regularly, like now I love coffee so much that I'm opening up my own coffee shop. And
No
Wow.
I was like,
way.
Wow.
okay. I was like, that's amazing. Like,
Yeah.
and she was like, I've studied all about coffee and how it gives different flavors, where it comes from, and there's just one specific kind of coffee that is not imported in our country. So I'm going to try and import that and sell that because it's really good. I've had it. And I was like, wait, like I was just giving you like a life structure recommendation, but for you to really genuinely develop a love for it and run with it, like that's amazing for me to hear and it makes me really happy.
That's
Yeah.
really
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got a customer as well, and he's got HOCD, and he's a barber, right? He'll love watching this, and obviously that's a very triggering thing for him. Like he used to find that very very tough, looking at the customers doing their hair, and now he's actually opened his own barber shop, right? And it's so great. He's made such great progress within 6 months. Still not recovered, still got some stuff going on. But it really does show you the progress that he's made. And yeah, it's funny when you say about seeing yourself in the mummy, because I can really see myself in him. It's like one of his compulsions is when he's driving along, he tries to like look at everybody because he's also scared of avoiding. So I did that exact same thing, and I almost nearly had an accident when I did that actually about 4 years ago. And it's just yeah, you're so right. When you can see yourself in them and you can see them progressing, yeah, absolutely, it's so rewarding. Yeah,
I did, by the way, I did that my own way. So it's like
yeah.
I was convinced because I was, see, people don't really understand this because Erica, I remember one time, this is 9 years ago. She's like, when I'm usually with a guy, usually at the house, like they'll be in like basketball shorts or pants, and then they won't have a shirt on. You're the opposite. Like you always wear a shirt, but then you're in your underwear. And I knew what I was doing. It's because I was afraid to look at myself without a shirt on.
Mm.
I know people don't believe me. I'm telling you right now, 15 years I did not do this. Shirt off, look in the mirror head on. Fifth, I would
Wow,
always brush my teeth like this, turn,
wow,
get
wow.
out of the shower, look at the ground. So when I did it, I almost actually passed out.
Oh
Like
my
the
god.
first time I did it, I was like convulsing. But I saw that that was giving me relief. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to state parks in Colorado with thousands of people, never wear a shirt. It didn't matter if it was fucking negative 10 Celsius. Like I was convinced more is better, more is better, more is better. And then I remember one time Erica said to me, every time we walk the dogs, Nick, you can wear a shirt. And I'm like, no, I can't because like I gotta keep showing myself that I'm not scared.
Mm.
What am I gonna do? Like go to weddings without my shirt on? Like even make sense. And then I
Yeah,
got to a place,
Because
but
it's the other extreme then. Yeah, that's the other
it's the
extreme,
other
like with
extreme.
Elliot as well, with chasing exposures.
You're
Yeah.
just
yeah.
chasing it, chasing it,
It's,
chasing it.
it's, yeah. Sorry, it's like with magic thinking as well. I've got people in with me now who is scared of like tapping 10 times, and of course you can't go doing that the rest of your life. Of course, when you do that, it just sort of starts to come down. But yeah, it's funny how you go too far the other way just out of fear, and in a way that's actually detrimental to your recovery journey. Yeah, go on. Sorry, Nick, I
And no, no,
interrupted.
no, no, it's great. I love when we do this. We go back
Yeah.
and forth. Like here's another funny one where exposures you're gonna get plenty of stuff, and
Mm.
it's great for everyone to hear where you can't expose yourself to it. It's too
Yeah.
either too theoretical or you can't do a direct exposure. Me, Ellie, and Momin. It's just how it goes. Unfortunately, there's a huge comorbidity and correlation between any type of addiction and recovery.
Mm.
What better way to not notice your sensations than getting addicted to drugs? So
Mm.
you have many people who are 2, 3 years sober and they have lingering fears of relapse. And I have people on the phone and I say, "What are you going to do? Because you can't expose." They're like, "There's got to be a way." I said, "You're right. This is right. Why don't you go back and do the drug you used to do and see how that?" And then we laugh because they're like, "Yeah, I can't expose." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, because there's
Yeah.
just going to be things that you get
I
to a
think
place."
another example is with people who have a fear of being on airplanes, right? Of
That's
course,
a
I
great
can't
one.
say that they like take 2 flights every week unless they're like a, I don't know, billionaire or something. So I
Yeah.
mean, but then their fear is also that, I mean, because they so desperately want to recover and do the work, they're like, wait, so like, do I need to take frequent flights? I'm like, no, like it does, because and then you have to work on the perspective of like, what if I'm delaying my recovery by not being able to do this like
Oh
exposure
yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
putting on
it's a
Fear
great
of
myself
one.
fear. Yeah.
like,
Hmm.
right? So then I'm like, look, realistically, it's not that, not from a point of reassurance, you can still recover from this, but it just means that in between, let's say you're able to take only one flight every year over the summer, you go somewhere or whatever. During that one period, you can still work on so many other things when it comes to recovery. It
Mm.
just means that when your chances of overcoming your like becoming completely comfortable with flying, it might be a little bit more spaced out and a little bit more delayed, but doesn't mean you can't recover or make recovery progress in other areas.
Mm.
So then they're like, okay, fine. And of course, like they might be feeling amazing over the one year, but the first time they will take a flight, it'll be like, ah. So I mean,
That's a
it's
great
obviously
imagine how funny that would be though if you got someone that came in and they're worth like hundreds of millions of dollars, and these people at the
just.
airport, these people at the airport are like, do you recognize that guy? He's here like every day. He just flies somewhere and comes back. Like, what is he doing? But you know, it's comical, but it's also, I mean, we see people do stuff like this, like the stories
Yeah,
I just told you. I mean, you know, this is why Moman and I like to joke about Elliot. I did this video one time. We didn't post it, thankfully, called
yeah.
Advanced Contamination Exposures. Did I tell you about this, Elliot?
I think I saw it. Were you licking the shoes
I was
in the
licking,
video?
I
Yeah.
put my finger in my own piss and rubbed it on my forehead. I licked the mailboxes. And Mo,
Yeah.
like, he made a great point. He's like, you know, with contamination, like you, A, can scare them away, but B, they don't actually need to go that crazy
No.
to do
Yeah.
it. And it is the truth in that way. So I think a good way to end on, because I have a call here in 5 minutes, is
Yeah.
I think I want, from my point of view, for my closing, is we, even though you got to put the work in to get better, and we can have the tough love approach,
Hmm.
it's not as drill sergeant as you think, especially with me, because I have many people that come in and say to me, there's something about you personality wise where I'm either nervous with you because I feel like you're going to tell me to do, like, you got to go skydiving tomorrow, or like, you know, I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you know, I'm just saying that I completely on. Then when people coach me, they're like, "Wow, I didn't." I've actually had people say this to me, which is funny. Moment, they're like, "I actually didn't think you were going to be like this compassionate." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." So, but I'm like, yeah, like we understand. I mean, I'm telling you, I tell that story every once in a while. Eric is here. I'm here at this exact desk in my old house, and Rob said to me, "I need you to not go to the gym for 4 weeks."
Mm.
Jim doesn't gone for now doesn't mean gone forever. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Hang up, literally swiveled this exact chair, looked at Erica, and I said, no, I'm not doing that. And then she lost it. Why are we
Yeah.
paying money? What? I'll call him back right now. And I was like, I don't give a fuck. I'm not doing it. And so
Yeah.
we understand, and we also are aware that you can tell us that you're going to do something, and then we're going to eventually find out if you do it or not, because you won't be getting better. So
Yeah.
we're like, hey, did you do those things? And then people say, I had a call very recently where the person said to me, and I quote, remember that thing you told me to do last year, which was 10 months ago? And I said, I do. Because I was looking at the notes. And they go, I didn't do it. I'm like, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna yell at you. You just have to do it now. So I wanted to end it with that because I think for
Yeah.
me, it's
Yeah.
we do have compassion. We understand when you don't do it. We get it. We do go. We understand.
100%. Yeah, I mean, and like you said, we eventually find out because
Yeah.
sometimes people will be like holding on to the hope that I have forgotten that I told them to do something maybe like 2 months ago, and I'm like, I never forget. Like I have a
Mm.
very short memory. Sometimes people will be like, how the hell do you remember XYZ thing that I told you? I'm like, no, I mean, yes, I work with a lot of people, but I remember when I tell someone to do something.
Totally.
So yeah.
Totally. Totally.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That is
All
great.
right, guys. Thank you so much for joining.
That was a
I
lot of
think this
that
was
was
a
a lot
fun
of
one. I
fun.
really
Yeah.
enjoyed
Cheers,
this. Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
That was
See
great.
ya.
All right.
Later,
Take
guys.
See
care.
you.
Bye bye.
See ya.
Bye.